Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Mystery School Hour with your show host, Ortrun Franklin. On the Star Nations Radio Network.
Hello, everyone. This is Ortrun Franklin with the Mystery School Hour, and I'm happy to have everyone joining me this evening, those that are on the website and those that are calling in and those that will be coming back for the replays. We welcome everyone. It's a thrill to have you with us, and it will be an interesting show tonight, I hope, and I hope that many of you will tune in and also chat with us. If you have any questions, please state them in the box in your chat room, and or if you're on the phone, give us a call. And you're all already signed in, but just press 1, and then you'll be put in line so that we can answer your questions. So, wow, it's July already. I can't even believe it. It seems like we just got back from Florida, and of course, July is the month that we here in America very often think about liberation, about independence, about freedom, because, we've got this 4th of July celebration of our independence. And interestingly enough, I was born on July 1st, so that's important for me too, because it's the Canadian holiday, their Independence Day, and I used to go up to Canada as a teenager, and so my birthday was actually celebrated on that day in Canada on their Independence Day, so that was always significant for me. So independence, freedom is something that's really, really important to every single one of us. And the title of tonight's show is called From Survival to Soul Liberation, because that's our journey. That's our journey to go back into the heart and mind of the divine. Over the last couple of months, there has been a lot of talk that Carl and I have talked about the connection of how it is that we descended down here upon the planet, and about twin souls, twin flames. Again, that coming from that divine heart and mind of God, and because it was all a descension process. We needed to descend, and we need to descend, actually, to ascend. So that is the format of what we are a part of. This is the cycle that we are part of. And so we chose to come here to this earth plane at some time. Now, who knows? The planet, our planet Earth is, millions of years old. And did we come here to be part of the planet back, over 3 million years ago, or did we join the planet, 50,000 years ago during the format was going at that time, or were we here during the Ice Age? Were we here? Did we join at the time of Atlantis? But we all joined the Earth plane at some point, because we wanted to experience it, and mainly we wanted to come here to assist in its upliftment. Planet Earth, its makeup, it's about 60% of the ones that have evolved through and come up through the evolutionary process. And then there are those that came from the angelic realm, and there are those that came from the planetary realm, the spiritual realm, to come to assist. Over the last few months, again, we mentioned that this was all an experiment, and this is the third grand experiment, because the other two had basically failed, and the planets where they tried to see how far duality could go, it got to the point where there was too much greed, there was too much negativity, and the planets actually exploded. And so this was the final experiment, the planetary experiment of the Earth. And it was guaranteed that it would not fail this time. But it was that the Syrians chose to commit to seeding our planet so that this experiment could be started again. And many of us came in at that time, but many of us also came in up through the evolutionary process. But in order for us to understand what was going on here upon the planet, we had to experience it. Because if you don't understand what is going on, there's no way that you can help to resolve. So what occurred is that when we came into the planet, of course, our memory was basically erased. We came in afresh, basically, and we had to experience. So for us, many of us, we've been here for eons of time here upon the planet, experiencing various types of vibratory frequency. And some of them are much more, went into it more deeply than other places. We got caught up in the drama of it more so than in other parts or other different types of vibratory frequencies. And so it is then that we are at what's called our lowest level, basically, of existence. And here it is that we are at the survival existence. Now, some of us may have the survival aspect of us, maybe, or has been, I'm sure somewhere along the way it has been the physical, where you had actually starved to death because that was what you needed to learn and to grow with, to understand. I myself in this lifetime experienced that because I was in malnutrition and I was close to dying. So this is something that all of us go through. We have the four bodies, the composition of the physical, the mental, emotional, and the spiritual. And so in order to truly understand all those different vibratory frequencies, and there are many within many, because, we have the 12 levels of awareness and consciousness, the chakras you might call it. But within those 12 chakras, there are another 12 steps, and within that there are another 12 steps and another 12 steps. So there are many lessons that occur within each one of these levels of expression of experience that we need to experience and to grow with and to grow through. Probably the hardest one that we would be going through in the beginning would be the one, let's just say, let's say it is starvation. And look at the planet. Look at how much hunger there is in the planet and how many are actually still going through that level. And if you're at that level of learning, wow, how hard it is to step into more, I'm going to say, of the spiritual teachings, because all you're trying to do is survive, to keep that physical body going, to keep that physical body nourished. Tom Hartman, he was a Coptic, he is a Coptic minister still, but he had a teacher out of Germany, and he was traveling in one of the third world countries with him. And Tom was looking around, and he saw all these people that were just really in a horrible state. And his teacher, his teacher that he had, said, we must grant these souls thanks for taking on these roles, that they had the courage to take on these roles, to experience this, because it was by their experiencing this that they were able, and that they are able to come through that. And that helps that particular phase of our planet, that particular vibratory frequency on our planet to be uplifted. And looks like a slow process because there are so many different layers. It's like peeling the onion. So there are levels and levels and levels and levels of each experience, of each vibratory frequency on the planet that need to be experienced. And each one of these levels of energy that we experience and that we come to understand, that is one that we have mastered. And the masters are the ones that we're all masters because we've all already learned some of this. We've all overcome some of these vibratory frequencies. But we become ascended masters when we have actually experienced and overcome all of the energy vibrations upon the planet. And that is what Jesus did. He overcame all of the vibratory frequencies, and that is why he became that ascended master. And he is the overseer now, of course, of our planet Earth. So Jesus, he walked his walk, but it wasn't just a one-time through. He came back many different times, learning many different lessons in order to be able to get to that level of awareness and understanding. And so it is also with us that we experience. And each one of us has our own thing that we're experiencing in our lives at this time. And so where do we start? Where do we start this evolutionary process of moving from that survival mode and moving into that soul liberation level of expression? Hamid Bey, he's a seven-ring master, and he was one whose writings that I studied much because he's the one that started Coptic fellowship here in the United States. And he believed, and he actually learned at the Coptic mystery schools of Egypt, the esoteric mystery schools of Egypt. And they were based upon the ancient mystery schools, the ancient Egyptian mystery schools. And he says, and many say, it's not just him, but it's also these esoteric ancient Egyptian teachings say that symbolically that the Great Pyramid of Gizeh has within it the answers. It has within it the levels and the walk that we have to walk through in order to achieve the soul liberation. And those of you that have been to Egypt have experienced this. What's interesting is that when you go to the Great Pyramid and you enter into that Great Pyramid, if you are at the very beginning, or maybe not, maybe it's just time to go revisit. You visit the level that's the descending passageway, which is the pit. The ancient Egyptians believed that there are many different parts to the soul. And in order for the soul to liberate, it had to experience all those different parts. And the soul was made of these different compositions. And one of the parts that was part of the soul is actually the name. It's Ren, R-E-N. And so by looking at your name, or maybe numerologically, figuring out what the symbology is of your name, that gives you some kind of a clue as to what it is that you are to achieve in this lifetime, or what it is that you are to do so that you can get to where it is that you are to be. For instance, my name, Ortrun, if I add up those numbers, 7, and 7 is introspection. It's interesting to me, even though I didn't know that at one time, that when I chose to focus on a discipline, when I started in Coptics and in the mystery schools, I chose my discipline to be meditation, and that's the focus I've had for 40 years. And so that's what you go within. You go within by the process of meditation. And that's really what the pyramid is also having you do. It's having you go within, because the Great Pyramid is actually a representation of you. It's a representation of your physical structure. And within this pyramid is the evolutionary process that you go through in order to attain soul liberation. Now, we don't go through this, as I mentioned, only once. You go through it many, many different times, because there are so many different layers, and how heavily something might be pulling on you. And so there's the Ren, the name, that gives you a hint is what it is that you need to do, or what you need to focus on, or the energy that you need to focus on in order for you to be driven and help through your process. We all have a different number, so we're all focusing on something a little bit differently. So that's basically, your name is the very first thing. You're given that when you're born, and it's something that you actually, unless you change it into a spiritual name, that you'll go through the rest of your life. So you always have that reminder. And every time that name is spoken, your name is spoken, you'll be reminded. For me, it's go within, go within, go within. So if you can find out, what's your name, what the vibratory frequency, and what the message is of that first name. The next part of the soul, as far as the ancient Egyptians was concerned, it's called the Ba. And Ba is the personality. It's basically the outer. And when you see the hieroglyph of it, you'll see it as a bird man. And so it's showing that there is this man, but there's this possibility of the bird, the attachment of the bird part, which when it comes together, it forms the Ba'ak. And the Ba'ak is actually when you have joined together the physical and also you have joined with the spiritual. So you joined, and that's the goal. That is the goal of the walk that we go through basically on a daily basis, because we are at a certain level. We're always walking through the process of evolution, and we are eliminating small parts, overcoming, and growing and growing and growing. So these smaller steps that are within the 12 steps, we're working away at them. We are peeling away at the onion until we've actually come to the point of understanding so that we can be evolved into the higher level of the process. Now, the other part that is within the heart is the Sheb, or Shuat. And that is the part of us that is the shadow part of us, because we all have a light part of us, and we have the shadow, the positive and the negative part of us. And this is a part of us that's very, very much the aspect of us by overcoming that we grow, and it allows us to achieve the soul liberation. Another part of the soul, according to the ancient Egyptians, is the Ibu or the Sheshib, which is the heart. You see, we can't move into that heart center, or at least into the high heart center, until we've resolved all of the different aspects of ourselves, of the personality part of us, of the earthly part of us. And all of this is within the pyramid, the Great Pyramid. The structure itself, the physical structure itself, is a representation of you. And you have the four parts, the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual parts. And it sits very, very firmly upon a solid base. And this is the part of you that is moving through the evolutionary process. But when you reach the top of that pyramid, it is then that actually soul liberation takes place, but it takes place on many different levels, one step at a time, over and over and over again, until there is that final, where it is that you have come to that place of union where you choose not to come back to this planet Earth. And you go back into the heart and mind of the divine. But as you reach the top of that pyramid, the evolutionary pyramid, there sits, pointing downward, the pyramid, the inverted pyramid, the involutionary pyramid. And it is when we unite with that involutionary pyramid and that evolutionary pyramid that we have joined together with the Ba'ak. And the Ba'ak is joining together with the physical and with the heavenly. And this is what we desire to create here upon the planet, for us to connect with heaven and earth. And as long as we have committed to being here upon the planet, this is what we desire to achieve, because once we achieve this, then it is much easier to walk through and assist the planet in its upliftment. But before we're always assisting the planet. That's upliftment. There's no doubt. Further and further that we have come in our own process of connecting with that which is that shadow part of us, and being able to get beyond that shadow part of us, and connecting that spiritual with the earth aspect of us, the heaven and earth. The easier now it becomes for you to focus your energies on assisting the planet, and it becomes so much easier to walk through the planet and assist it in every possible way. Just by having your feet on the ground, you are assisting the planet. So within the Great Pyramid, it has the pattern of what it is that we have to accomplish in order to achieve the soul liberation, our soul liberation. And each one of it has something. And maybe we have come far enough along in our process that we feel that we've come and we now are really focusing only on the higher realms, but bringing that energy of the higher realms down always. I work with many, many people, and because the pain that they connect with regarding their physical bodies, their mental, and their emotional bodies, very often they shut that part of themselves down. And it's so important that we actually focus in on those aspects of ourselves so that we can truly grow. Because until we open up those areas, and that's the part of us that's the survival part. And the part of the pyramid that works with the survival is that descending passageway that takes you down into the pit, what's called the pit. So you can see this pyramid as you yourself, and you can enter into this pyramid, and you enter in, and you can see this within yourself, because when I look at this, I look at my physical body here, and I'm sensing my stepping, going within, as my name says, go within to that inner aspect of yourself. In other words, go into that underworld, that part, that darkness, that dark world, and start being able to see the light, come to understand what this is about. And that's an extremely hard thing to do. I know that when I first started in the process, I didn't really want to go inside myself because I was concerned of what it is that I would spot and what I would see. And I didn't think that I would like what I would see inside of myself. So, but there is a point where we are so, I'm going to say down, or we've just really hit bottom, that we make that commitment and we say, I just can't live like this anymore. I have to get beyond this. I don't even want to stay here on the planet anymore. If I can't live better than this, if I can't feel better within myself than this, I just want to leave. So it's at that time that you make that commitment. But what you have done when you choose to do that is you've chosen to walk that descending passageway so that you can see what is deep, deep, deep within you. What are those wounds that are within you? You know, there are the physical wounds, as I mentioned. You know, I can say that because of starvation, that's a big wound. It's a big, and it's a survival mechanism. You know, all you really think about is what am I going to eat next, or am I even going to survive? Am I going to have something else to be able to survive with as far as food? And if you are only focused on that, it's extremely hard to get even higher. But when you move into that starvation, and I'm going to say this for, you know, like I said, the physical starvation, but also the emotional starvation and the mental starvation, that's where we start. And so as we go down this descending passageway, it's a slippery slope. It's not an easy thing to do because it's hard for us to go and look at ourselves. As I mentioned, it was hard for me to look at myself, and because I had no idea. It was all the fear of the unknown. Of what was this all about? And so we go into this process, and we start being courageous, because we do have with us always our guides, our masters, our teachers. And this is one thing that we need to recognize, how protected we are. And yes, we are taught as children we always have a guardian angel. If that's where you've got to start with that guardian angel. And as you grow in awareness and consciousness, you'll recognize that there are many, many more that are there to help you. And so start walking down into yourself so that you can meet with that darkness, the dark night of the soul. The Buddha himself went into the Doman Cove to sit in that darkness until he could receive enlightenment. And the purpose of walking this descending passageway in the Great Pyramid is because there are certain times of the year, and again, this is very symbolic. You go into that pit, and there's a certain time when you reach a certain level, there's this light that comes down the shaft, and you see the light. And this light allows us to recognize that there's more to us than we have ever believed. But again, it's a process. We may go down this descending passageway many, many different times before we eradicate the pain that's associated with our physical body, or the pain that is there with our emotional body and our mental body. Because this descending passageway and the pit, they represent those aspects of us, of our chakra system. It focuses upon the earthly chakras, the cleansing of those earthly chakras so that we can continue up and reach in now to the heart center of our being. Many of us that are in the arena, the spiritual arena, as I mentioned, we have quite a bit of blockage here in those particular parts of ourselves, of the emotional and like your base chakra and your abdominal chakra, emotional chakra. And it's because we have started to look up, and we pray and we look up and we forget about that part of us, but it still remains. And it's still something that needs to be looked at. It needs to be cleansed out before you can actually continue on this path of higher ascension. So by going within, doing the work that it takes to go down into this part of ourselves and to look at ourselves and then recognize that the light is with us, because it does come. There is that all of a sudden this knowing, this inner knowing, and this is when it's balanced out. And then with your divine ones, you walk up the passageway. This passageway that you walk down, the descending passageway, must descend to ascend. And that's what happens here when you are walking the passageway inside of yourself, inside of this great pyramid of light, which is symbolic of us. And so once this part of us is cleared out, and we may have to go back many different times because we've cleared it out to a certain degree, and we have moved on. We were able to move on into our heart center, but there's still some remnants there. And so we do go back at times, over and over again. But now you've cleared yourself enough so that you can move into the passageway that leads you into the heart center. And according to Hamid's teachings, within the pyramid, it covers the 12 chakra centers. And the Queen's Chamber actually is representative of what we call the low heart, the heart that has to do with the earthly beings, with the love of the earth, with the love of our family, with the love of good food, with the Chinese, they have 127 different or 129 different words for love, different types of love. And so that's what we're tapping into in the Queen's Chamber when we move into our lower heart. But the thing is that by moving into that lower heart, we're starting to recognize that we do love. We it's more of a limited love yet. It's still a love where it's more conditional, that it's more focused still upon the earth. But this is also the crossover point. It is here that the decision is made where we can decide that we want to go further up in our spiritual awareness and our growth. We may choose to stay in this space of love, and that we may do this for many, many lifetimes, to remain there and love our family tremendously and love everything about the earth tremendously. But once we make that decision to, and also there are lessons there. There are many lessons. There are many levels of awareness that we need to learn and to work through, because as I mentioned, there's the 12 steps within the 12 steps within the 12 steps. And that's what it's one of the hardest places to be, because we have the concern of letting go of our earthly nature, of our earthly connections, so that we can move into that higher level of the heart. And that's halfway in the Grand Gallery. So the Grand Gallery leads you up into divine mind. It is here that it is considered to be the seat of the soul. Once you've reached the level of the seat of the soul, and this is the place that is occupied by Isis, because it is the place of love. It is the place of expanding love. It is here that the love aspect of ourself, the embracing aspect, not only focusing now on family and the good things that are feeding us, but embracing and loving beyond the earthly realm. We begin to embrace the entire planet, and we reach out and embrace all that there is. There's the galaxies, all the galaxies, and the universes, and the super universes. So once we've chosen, that's where the heart, the Queen's Chamber, is the crossover place. We can remain there and live a life, and it can be beautiful, but it is even more beautiful and more fulfilling if we move ourselves up into that high heart, which is represented chakra-wise, the thymus. But in this place of the pyramid, it's halfway between the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber. And that's the bridge of connecting with that divine mind. And that's the third eye area of our being. And it's not that we're connecting with the brain, because as long as we're still in that lower heart, we're still connecting with the brain. But once you move into the high heart, you're not connecting to the divine mind. And once these two have connected, and it's a journey, it's a process. It's not something that is done in a day, but it's worth it. And there might be resilience, there might be resistance that comes along all the way going through any of these steps. But if you're determined, you'll reach your goal. And none of it is easy, and it's represented in the pyramid not so easily, because the Grand Gallery is very steep. And it's interesting how when I visited there, it was like I'd been there before, and I started breathing a certain way, because I knew I needed to have this type of breathing to help me to walk that part of the journey, but connecting that heart and mind. And it is then that there is that, like there's a tunnel that moves up, where divine heart and divine mind have connected, and you reach the top of the pyramid, the top of your evolutionary pyramid, the evolutionary you, where the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual bodies that you are walking around with here on this planet have connected, and it is then that invisible, downward pyramid, the involutionary pyramid, connects. It is here then, when these two connect, that divine soul liberation takes place. Each time you go through this journey, you find more and more liberation within yourself. You start to experience our planet as being this most magnificent, beautiful place, and your days are beautiful. No matter what it is that you experience through the day, it's beautiful. It's no longer a chore to be walking through the day. It's a totally different environment because you've pulled together, you've brought together the Ba and the Ak, spirit, the divine spirit, and the divine earth. Heaven and earth have merged together in oneness. Okay, I'm going to open it up to questions at this point in time. And again, if you are on the phone, please press 1, or if you have a question, you can also put it into the chat room. And Carl, do you have any thoughts or comments?
I was a Lutheran minister for 13 years, and I had to leave because I found that the teachings of Luther, and these are common to all Christian denominations, including the Catholic, we're sinners, and there's nothing we can do about that. We couldn't save ourselves. We had to have God send someone here to save us. And this idea that we're a sinner is one of the most powerful downers in terms of building self-esteem, self-worth, self-image. It robs us of our power. It robs us of our divine nature if we accept it. Now, Jesus, on the other hand, said, "Do you not know that you are God?" And the psalmist said exactly the same thing. But the founders of the Christian churches have chosen to totally ignore that. And unless you believe that Jesus came and died for your sins, you can't be saved. Well, the interesting thing is, we're not sinners. None of us are sinners. But all of us are students, and we come to this earth planet because it is a school, and we are the students. And I'm going to guess that most of us would say we have learned as much from our mistakes, quote, sin, okay, as we have learned from our successes. So sin does not exist in my mind, but lessons do exist. And the reason behind all of it is to learn. And what Ortrun is talking about here is to learn to connect with your divine essence that is within you, and that the pyramid is a representation of. And the shadow side are those feelings that we have about ourselves that are, I'm going to call them negative, that are limited, that do not make us feel good about us. Our shadow side, we really feel when we realize we've made a blunder, all right? And then we feel unworthy. The question to ask is, well, what can I learn from this? And even if it was a blunder, a big mistake, if you've learned from it, how can you say it's been bad? That's the reason we came, was to learn.
Thank you, Carl. I was, one of my friends, she wrote me something this week, and I found it extremely, extremely interesting because there is a resistance, and that's what she actually wrote to me about. And she was asking my perspective on this, and I'm going to read this to you. And I want to, if she's on the phone, I'm not sure if she's or not, but if she's, I want to thank her for sending this to me because I think this will open up quite a bit for all of us. And she talks about, she wanted to get a perspective on the principle of resistance, defined as an internal force we feel most when we're probably about to grow spiritually, to go to the next level. And she was listening to the Super Sunday, Soul Sunday on Oprah Winfrey. And this particular author, and his name is Stephen Pressfield, was the author of The War of Art. He spoke about a universal force that tries to keep us from moving forward anytime we endeavor to grow or change for the better. And that can be anything. It can be, whether we're starting a diet or if we're trying to stop an addiction that we have, or we automatically have this, or wanting to meditate. There's something that's holding us back. And he says the more important something is that your soul's evolution, the greatest resistance you'll feel, it's really there, and it comes through your fears. And what happens is that we usually, it's in a form of self-sabotage, whether it's through fear, through doubt, through shame, and so on. Or it can be that we get sabotaged by others because others, society will criticize us for wanting to try something or move out of something that we have been evolved in, and we really want to continue, onward. And what he said was that the job as spiritual soldiers was for us to recognize the force that's around us, and then also see how it generates within us, and then be vigilant in our desire to grow and not let that feeling, procrastination or empathy, hold us back. Well, I had mentioned, earlier on that when I would try and move on, I had this fear of going within because I was afraid of what it is that I might see. But she was wondering if what I thought about this, and I thought it was an extremely interesting thing, and I felt like it really fit in here because she wondered what does Coptic have anything to say about this, or what would you call that internal force? And what I came up with was, first and foremost, is that with this descension process that we went through, we got very caught up in the drama of things. And that and that's why it's so deep. That's why it's so hard for us to let go that resistance, that resilience. And that force, that gravitational force that we're feeling is actually what we have created with it. And as I mentioned, it's because of the shame, the fear of being maybe being recognized as being a fraud, or it could be anything. But that we no longer need to be ashamed or fearful of any of that, because we are these beings of light. We are here to experience, to express, to assist. And in the churches, even Jesus, when he was going his process, when he was doing the process, of his crucifixion, there was a point, just before getting ready to walk through that, because that's really basically what's going on within us, is that we feel like we're being crucified because we're looking at that deep part of us, and it's very fearful, and it's very painful, and it's this process of actually, because that's what the crucifixion represents, again, is another pathway, as is represented within this pyramid, the Great Pyramid. He, too, he went off to pray, and ask that this be taken from me. Why have you forsaken me, Divine One? Take this cup from me. This is too hard for me to do. Right? So this appears also in the Christian, writings. And, Jesus himself, he went into the desert to find enlightenment, as Buddha did, to go into that dome and cave to sit in the darkness to find enlightenment. So this teaching goes through all different aspects, whether it's the ancient mystery schools, or whether it's the Asian teachings, or whether it's the Christianity, or Judaism, and so on, that there's this tempter, this temptress that keeps us from being able to achieve our goal. But the important thing is to recognize that this is a part of us that we have actually, in a sense, created, because we've created it through the fear and that we've touched into as we got deeper and deeper into that drama. And once that recognition is there, then we can set that intention of wanting to move forward. As what I suggested to her is that if that comes back again, if you are, want to continue overcoming something, by realizing that's what it is that a creation that we have come up with ourselves, the next time it comes around, because it will come around, as I mentioned, time and time again, as we're peeling the onion, it can come around, to see it as a friend. Say, oh, you're back again. Okay, what is it that you want me to step into now? What do you want me to understand about this now? Because all that is there for is for you to understand the different phases or different aspects. It's like, you're walking around the circle and looking at the different perspectives as you're looking at the circle. And that's all that's actually going on here, is to get that deep, total understanding. Because when you reach that total understanding of that painful situation or whatever it is that you're trying to do or that you can't overcome, that's when you become the master of it. That's when you've neutralized it. That's when both the positive and negative energies have come together of it. The understanding is there. And that's really the purpose of our being here on the planet, is to get to that point. We came here to experience how far we could bring the energies, the negative energies, without actually, again, destroying the entire planet. But the Divine One, the Divine Creator, wanted to know what could be experienced, and how far could it go before it actually came back, that we came back, and we're all part of that experiment. And as I said, we would not have been able to be part of the upliftment of the planet if we didn't actually step into those roles so that we could recognize and understand what that all meant. But in the meantime, when you step into those dark places, you're also being the light, because the light is always within you. So that by moving into that level of what you might call negativity or challenge, you're also bringing light into that space, and you're also planting light into that space so that it can be easier for the next person to then overcome and face up to that dark night of the soul that's within themselves. That's very similar to what it is that you were dealing with. And so in this way, we keep, as I mentioned, we keep clearing out and helping to uplift this planet Earth. So, we all have these parts of us that are still probably lost, what kind of pain did you have as you started out as a child? As I mentioned, I had a survival thing because of food, because I didn't have any food. They thought I would die because I didn't have it. So even picking up the energy vibration of what my mother must have felt, being this little child, under a year old, we pick up all these things about our families. But see, because we are those strong ones, we are those souls that came here to assist in changing the vibratory frequency. And we pick those up because we can work through them. It's a matter of recognizing how it is that we can work through them. And the more that we grow in our awareness, the more we recognize that we've got this, oh my goodness, anyone you want to call upon. You make the spirit realm your friend. You had the guardian angel when you were this little one. But the more that you connect and become one with the spirit realm, they're all there to assist you. They're all there to give you that confidence so that you can move onward. And not only help yourself, but you're helping anyone else that's experiencing that similar thing, similar vibratory frequency. And you have that within you. And so that's how, sometimes it doesn't feel good. Let me just say that. It's like when Carl and I are working with disembodied spirits, I can feel the energies of those beings and what they've gone through. But I also know that I have the strength within me. I have everything around me, every being of light around me, so that I can continue to assist with that, because I can work it through and move it through my energy field so that it can transmute it. And this is our job, and that's why we walk through these different levels, these steps, so that we can become more and more aware and become more trusting and knowing that we are here for this purpose. And every time we do that, our soul is liberated even more, and it's liberated even more, and it's liberated even more. And then it gets to that point where, like as I mentioned, you're walking through your day. There's very few days that you don't feel this harmony. You feel like you are free. But it takes a lot of work. And it's not something that you can do by have someone else do for you. It's something that you do for yourself. You must do it by yourself. It's your journey, it's your walk. It's what you committed to do here on the planet. And you are more than you realize that you are. You are these divine beings. You are spirit in expression. And I just want to emphasize that so much to you, so that when there is that fear that creeps up, know that see it as your friend, because there's a lesson to be learned. There's something that they want to tell you, or something else that you need to learn. Maybe it's not even about yourself. Maybe it's about some other situation on the planet. But see it as a friend, and see yourself surrounded with the divine essence of your being, of who it is that you are, and because you are that divine light. And then look at it from that manner. It eliminates the fear. It eliminates the emotion that's attached with it. And you come into a state of trust. And things blossom. And it's as though it unfolds in front of you. And it's this jewel, this beautiful jewel that you see folding. Because you've changed your attitude, your mind, and that force, that gravitational force that was within us, that caused the negativity and the fear, has been released, and it's gone on and it's moved on. Are there any questions by any chance? Okay, good. There's someone that's on the line. Her name is Connie. And could you tap her through for me, please?
Hi, Ortrun.
Hi, Connie. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. It's hot here in Florida, as usual.
I'm here.
But I wanted to thank you for tonight. It's been wonderful. And I wanted to share with you that when I have gone in lately to my heart center, it's like I cry, but it's not a sad cry.
Uh-huh.
It sounds kind of crazy, but it's like a joyful cry.
Oh, I can relate to that.
And it's like I've come so far, and I thought, oh my goodness, is this? At first, I didn't quite understand it, but then I was in meditation on Sunday's meditation, and when I went into that meditation, it was probably, I have to say, that one of the deepest meditations that I have gone through in a very, very long time. And I just felt so blessed. And I thought, and the tears were just flowing, and it was just such a joy. And I thought, is that, and I hope that's normal.
It is, and it's a truly, truly a gift. And as you said, it was tears of joy. And joy is the highest form, of love that there possibly can be, because when you're in joy, there's only joy. There's nothing else. It's only joy. That's the only word that you can really use for it is joy. because it's not like there's any. You're totally connected with everything that there is. All of the divine essence of who God is. And Carl wants to add something here.
Sure.
Connie, when you were in that state, did you feel that you had just come home?
Yes. Yes, I did. How did you know that? That's wonderful.
Because that's what home feels like. That's where we're going.
Oh, my. It was such peace. Oh, it was wonderful. It was.
And you know what that is now, and, the more and more you connect with it, the more you will connect with it. Because this is, you've done it before, but you can connect with that even more and more and more. And that's why, I said, you create that divine heaven on earth. And because there isn't that separation anymore. We're just, everything is one now.
And we're in heaven is here, in my mind. That's how I felt. I felt like, my goodness, I'm right in heaven.
Yes, exactly. And you talk about soul liberation, right?
Yes.
That's it. Well, you are fortunate. I'm so glad that you shared that wonderful story. Because,
well, honey, I just wanted to share that with you because I felt tonight's show was just such an impact for me and so wonderful. And I thought, I've gone in the pit. I've done that part, and I've gone down in there and searched. And I was afraid. I was afraid at first to go down in. But then as I kept going and doing all the work, and then Sunday, it was just like I had reached it.
Isn't it? Congratulations to you. I've got goosebumps all over me, Connie, because
well,
this is what we want to achieve. We want people.
I want people to know you never give up. You don't. Even if you're thinking, I can't get it, don't give up. It comes.
Yes, it does. And it's a matter of time because, sometimes it just isn't quite the right time for you yet to have it be revealed to you in that manner yet. But it does come. As I mentioned, it's layers, we don't have the full understanding. There's still an aspect of it that we need to learn, and yes, but it is a wonderful thing then, because once you get to that space, yes, you may have, because you're still a human, you may still experience, sometimes when you feel off and so on, but it's so much easier to get yourself back into that, because that whole sense of trusting and knowing that this is reality is all about, and that the illusion has been lifted.
It's wonderful. It's just wonderful. And I just thought I'd just share that with you guys tonight because it's just been such a wonderful journey for me. I mean, to be a senior and still be here and to be able to have that experience on this earth plane. And share it to give people hope.
Yes. And more are going to experience that, because, and you're there to let people know that this is a possibility.
Yes. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, so. Well,
bless you, honey.
Thing Carl wants to say to you.
Connie, I hope you hang on for the second hour because we're going to get more into that.
Oh, I plan on that.
Okay, because that is going to become the reality on Earth, and it is. There was a channeling today that came from at a very high level, and not that it came to me personally, but that I read, and it's amazing what and this channeling felt just really right on to me. All right, and it's amazing how close we are and how quickly it's going to happen when it happens. Because the whole planet's going through a transformation to become this heaven on earth.
There we go.
It feels good, doesn't it?
It does feel good.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Stay with us, and we're going to wind this portion of our program down, and Carl will be starting his program in just a few moments on the spirit realm and ascension, and so stay tuned with us. So thank you. We're just going to take a few moments.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Mystery School Hour with your show host, Ortrun Franklin, on the Star Nations Radio Network.